All right, let's get our other Facebook groups in here. Spinning wheels, 1 and 2. Give it a moment to breathe. And we are off. Welcome in, everybody. It is Monday morning, 10:10 at 7:37 a.m. Mountain Time. It's time for an episode of Broncos for Breakfast. I am Nick Kendell and joined by, as always, on these morning shows, Scott Kennedy. Scott, good morning to you. How was your weekend?
Good morning. Weekend was solid. Fairly relaxed. The boy sprained his ankle really badly, so he was out watching on the bench watching. So no stress from that point of view. But lots to talk about. It was a long weekend for the Denver Broncos fans. I know that it started off bad and then it just kept getting worse. The news coming in it just kept piling on. So we're here to help. We're here to help. We're not your football priest, but we can hopefully provide an outlet here for the next hour or so to vent your frustrations and talk about where do we go from here.
Yeah, 100%. It is weird to have us talk so late after the game because it feels like, I personally haven't been able to exercise my demons all the way up from this absolutely painful to watch Thursday night game. But we'll get into that and start to, have a more overall overarching view on this team so far this season, given, we are in our quote unquote mini bye week. With the Thursday game to Monday. I mean, God, what a big actual layover between games. And another primetime game for the Broncos. Yay! I remember last season we were complaining, oh man, the Broncos are irrelevant. Nobody wants to give them a primetime game anymore. Now it's just like, God, give me the sweet release of death. I can't take the clowning anymore because this team is just embarrassing right now. But maybe they'll turn it around. It's definitely going to be a tough game, but that's not a dynamic Chargers team right now either. Very injured, so we'll get into that probably a little later on. But right now, more overarching and review of the Indy game. We got Diamond Rattler coming in saying, boom, let's go. Coffee time, mashed potatoes, and gravy time. Mashed potatoes and gravy. Scott, how do you feel about mashed potatoes and gravy for breakfast?
You put it in front of me, I'll eat it. I like food. So
yeah.
Had the pumpkin waffles yesterday for breakfast. Those are solid from Trader Joe's. If you haven't done that, I highly suggest a little whipped cream. I'm not a big whipped cream guy, but a little whipped cream on top of that just makes it.
I'm a maple syrup guy, pretty much no matter what. I adore maple syrup. Give me the fake stuff.
The syrup was a given.
Yeah. Okay,
waffles and syrup, that's a given. So I meant, what else can you, just a little dab on top of that. Yeah, syrup, pancakes, French toast. Syrup's a given with that.
Yeah, little brown sugar on top for some color. Yeah, no, that sounds really good. I'm getting hungry now. Good to see you, Diamond Rattler. We got Kevin Gray coming in saying, morning Broncos country. Nick and Scott, do you guys think that George Paton figured out how important the core is on an offense? Denver Broncos for life. I'm not sure exactly what Kevin means by the core on this question. What do you decipher here, Scott?
Line. Offensive line. I think that's what it means. Yeah, you'd like to think. I don't know. I don't want to just keep beating a dead horse on this stuff, because before the game last week, we spent a lot of time talking about the lack of resources and attention paid to the offensive line. Nick, you got hit on Twitter saying, I think Scott Kennedy is losing his mind regarding the lack of plan at left tackle. I think it said specifically left tackle, which I didn't mention. I think Garrett Bowles has been fine at left tackle. But the right tackle position, yeah, I've said that the lack of certainty at the right tackle has been a chink in the armor of George Paton since I've been covering this team the last 2 seasons. Dalton Reisner was a problem last year. Nothing. Lloyd Cushenberry was a problem last year. Nothing.
He's gotten worse.
And then Quinn Miners, was hurt. So, I'm okay with that one. You felt like you had the right guard position, but that's still 3 positions on your offensive line that you got big question marks going into the season with.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's the offensive line specifically is not great right now, unfortunately. And not to be, totally negative Nancy on this, but does it even matter if you have issues at the pass catching spots? Because guys not named Cortland Sutton are getting open, but they're just getting missed. I don't know if you guys, for your mental health, maybe don't go back and watch that Colts game, but Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler open pretty often in this game. Schemed open, good by their own merits, getting open. not getting the ball. So hopefully that's something this team can work on this week and start to distribute it a little bit more. But it's a problem right now. We also got our first super that I can see coming in here, coming in from Addison, $4.99, saying, I think Hackett is too much of the player's friend and the coach. He needs to control the team and take charge of everything. It's too early for me to say, and I'm not in there, so it'd just be pure hearsay and conjecture on my end to say, he's not taking control of things. But the Broncos, and this is true for businesses beyond football, but you see it a lot in football too. When you go from the old crotchety defensive guy who's not the player's coach, who not playing music and nobody likes, well, then we gotta swing really hard the other direction of the pendulum and go for an offensive minded guy who's shucks and everybody loves. And a lot of times that kind of hardcore back and forth is not the way to go, and you end up missing some of the better coaches out there. So it's way too early to give up on Hackett. Now, I don't want to go too far into this. It does sound like the ownership group is not pleased so far with what's been going on there. And it's not just the scheme, it's, game decisions and institutional control. But definitely he needs to do a better job of being the dude. I mean, who's in charge here? Who's calling the shots? I think that's a fair question right now.
That's what I was going to ask you, Nick. What has been the response to any of these questions? It's been to go in and bring in outside help. That's been the response so far. We need a coach for the coaches. I need a game management coach. I need this. It's like, as Addison is saying, I need to step up and own all of this. Let's start canning some people. Get rid of all the extra noise and just own it. Say, listen, it's my way or the highway. I'm in charge. It's my ass on the line. And the more people I have to bring in and delegate it, the less I'm needed here at all. Yeah. So, if I'm going to go down, by God, I'm going to go down my way. I'm with Addison on this. It's, if it's not working, you got to change. You've got to change some of the things you're doing, and being, the ultimate player's coach. Players don't mind structure and discipline as long as you're fair.
Yeah.
As long as you're fair about it, they don't mind a hard ass coach as long as you are fair. But if they lose respect for you and your decision making, it's over. It is absolutely over. It is easier to change a coaching staff than it is to change a 53-man roster.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and just adding to that, seeing the early success of Mike McDaniel and Brian Daboll over there, they're not as injured as the Broncos, although the Dolphins are on their third-string quarterback, which you can argue is more impactful than the injuries the Broncos have had. But definitely, Hackett's got to get it together. It's not all his fault, but a lot of the onus does fall on him. Tom coming in here saying the reason is fans, I think, are going to ham on this team is there's no hope for the near future. Following season, we have high picks, cap space, and we have had high picks, cap space, and hope for the franchise quarterback. No money, no picks. Yeah, luckily the Broncos, it's just this upcoming season where you don't have the high draft picks, and after that, you can kind of start to rebuild again. I think they have all of their 2024 draft capital at their disposal. If they don't, it's some like really late picks. But the big one is you can change a lot of things, but you're pretty much married to Russell Wilson for the next 4 seasons. I'd have to go through the contract to really get into it.
It's this one plus 3 is really what it is. Yeah.
4 seasons.
Unless you want to take a $40 million dead cap hit, which is possible.
Get really bad. It'd have to get really bad.
We've seen it.
Yeah. That's frustrating, no doubt. And that definitely leads itself to some
But there is money in free agency. That's the one I will push back on Tom. It says there's no money. There's decent money. Mm-hmm. There's plenty of money right now. If you look at Spot Rack and say estimated cap space for 2023 is $24 million, that's significant. And then, okay, let's look at some of the places we can restructure a little bit and clear up some cap space. Justin Simmons is one. He's got an $18 million cap hit where you could knock that one down. Garrett Bowles is 18-8. So for his cap hit versus dead cap, you could do something there. Graham Glasgow, you will save $11 million on him when you cut him because he's got a $14 million cap hit with $3 million dead cap. There's $11 million. Ronald Darby is now in deep doo-doo for next season, and you save $10 million on that cap hit. Josie Jewell is expendable, another $5 million on his cap hit. I just went through $35-40 million.
Yeah.
There's lots of money available. With the restructuring and the contracts that you could remove yourself from. So while yes, we really do enjoy the draft process, which is kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
There is money available, but like we said, the big problem right now is the big question right now is your quarterback.
Yeah.
We didn't think we were going to be saying that coming into October. It's like I've hitched my wagon to Russell Wilson. Am I going to get Russell Wilson?
Yeah. And there are legitimate excuses for his play so far. I mean, he's suffering was the tear in his lat, if I'm not mistaken, which could explain some of the missed throws and the timing and some of the ugly throws. Doesn't really explain the poor decision making that we saw on Thursday and somewhat through the season. Way more on Thursday than before, though. But again, hopefully it's something they can improve upon and figure it out. I mean, there's a lot of issues right now on offense, but there are things that they can improve upon. Kenneth Booker coming in here saying, if not Hackett, what coach would you have signed? I mean, hindsight's 2020. I was, before the season even started, I've been a huge fan of Mike McDaniel since, God, when the Broncos brought over Vance Joseph. I really wanted Mike McDaniel to be the offensive coordinator. That would have been back in 2017, just because I'd heard a lot about him being a run game coordinator and whiz kid. Now, the issue is the 49ers wouldn't let him go because they loved him so much. He wasn't allowed to leave until he got that head coaching opportunity, in which case you can't block it anymore. So they were fine letting Rich Scangarello go, which I don't even know where Rich Scangarello's at anymore.
I think he is the offensive coordinator for the Kentucky Wildcats right now.
He is. I couldn't remember if he was there last year and still there or if he moved on. But
I think I remember hearing his name when I was watching a little bit of college football.
Yeah. So that's Mike McDaniel would have been my guy. Actually, the other one that would have been made a lot of sense would have been Doug Peterson. Get some obviously skins on the wall. And somebody, this is another thing. We're talking about Nathaniel Hackett, and maybe this is partially of bringing Russell Wilson here, and God, I'm going to hear from Russell Wilson's people or something, but Russell Wilson isn't the caliber of quarterback where he can come in and call the shots, in my opinion. I know you gave him the contract like that. He's got his own people have offices in the Broncos facility. This isn't Tom Brady. This isn't Peyton Manning. This isn't Patrick Mahomes. This is a very good quarterback who is borderline Hall of Fame. I even hate to put him on this, but like the Eli Manning category of quarterback right now, maybe I'm disparaged because of how he's been playing, but not good enough where he can come in and be like, this is what we're doing. This is what I want. I think you need a little bit of backbone and coach who knows what they want to do and put him in the best position, because Russell Wilson, he wants to come in and be Drew Brees or Tom Brady, let Russ cook 50 pass attempts a game, empty sets. We have data that says that things get worse when you go to that kind of offense for Russell Wilson. But it seems like, and from what I've heard, that's what he's pushing for, wants to run. You need to have a coach that can say, no, this is what we're doing. This is what you're best at. This is what the data shows to function in this offense.
Now, this isn't hindsight because, we've got a lot of regulars in here, but I was against signing a big extension from the get-go. You had 2 years left of contract control. What was the rush?
Yeah.
If you've got Russell Wilson, he's about to tie an extra 4 years to his career, and you're gonna commit $250 million to him, man, be sure. It's like, oh, well, you could save $20-30 million. Fine, that's 10% of the overall value of a contract across five seasons. So what?
Mm-hmm.
That's not much money, relatively speaking. You know what's expensive? Missing.
Mm-hmm.
Missing is expensive. Divorces are expensive. That's expensive. Yeah. The opportunity lost is expensive. Man, play some, make sure on both sides. And I said, I feel like there really shouldn't have been a big rush on the extension. Right now, do you think that deal would get done right now?
No.
No. Hell no, it wouldn't get done right now.
Yep.
So,
and I mean,
what really did you save? If this thing worked out, and he's playing lights out, what did you save?
Yeah, and to be fair,
$50 million on a $300 million contract. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, that's pennies.
I think you also saved a little bit of question marks going into the season, not pay, having this contract situation looming over the locker room and Russell Wilson's
2
pay.
years though, man.
Yeah, I know, and committing to him long term. This is our guy. And I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh, I liked it when it happened because they weren't paying record-setting money. They weren't resetting the market. And you had some flexibility as far as the cap room if he played well to manipulate it and move on. But right now, not playing well, it's way too early to write the obituary. We've seen this story time and time again. I already talked about some of these quarterbacks. Aaron Rodgers, everybody's ready to write him off. Boom, back-to-back MVPs. Tom Brady's done. Goes to Tampa Bay. Looks incredible. Gosh, there's Peyton Manning neck surgeries, early on, right in the obituary. Now, Russell Wilson isn't those guys, but this
I'm not saying he's done by any stretch of the imagination.
plays, I don't think yeah.
I'm not saying he's done. I just don't think, all the guys you mentioned, except for Peyton, they're with their own teams. They had a track record with their own teams. Aaron Rodgers has earned that with the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
Tom Brady's different, obviously, but if you're signing extensions to the guys that are there and they're comfortable and they're playing under the same coaches, there's some continuancy there. There was so much new to then just turn around and drop $250 million on a new quarterback. I mean, this harkens back to the days of when your first number 1 overall draft pick used to be the most expensive player in the NFL. That's, it's not quite that bad because, Russell Wilson did have a track record, but there was, for me, I was preaching patience from the get-go on this one.
Yeah.
On both sides.
Yeah.
On both sides.
I get Russell Wilson wanted to secure the bag. I don't blame him on that one. But we got Tom coming in here, $4.99, saying the first 2 picks we drafted were wasted. Lucas would have been our best offensive lineman right now. Corner should have been signing because Darby's hurt every year. I mean, I know Mathis had the one play where it was kind of like an arm punt that Alec Pierce came down with, and Mathis probably should have gotten the ball. But I think overall Mathis has looked competent out there, and I'm excited to see what him and Ojemudia can do for the rest of the season. They have an audition for that spot, and both of them are talented young players still, so hopefully they can be healthy and make a difference. You are going to miss Darby, but you have some options there at least. Lucas, I mean, Scott and I did the draft simulator 100 times, and every single time Lucas was there at 64. That wasn't one of the like Drake Jackson or who was in the Josh Pascal out there, one of those pass rushers that we loved. Then we were taking Abraham Lucas, and
he's Abraham Lucas every time.
Yeah. I push back
teams,
sometimes on the
both teams at the time, when we're doing this, we're doing a Falcons one, we're doing a Broncos one. Both teams seemingly needed right tackles. The Falcons' right tackle is playing very well this year. And, the Broncos' right tackle isn't necessarily bad, all things considered. But, again, it's a short-term plan. It's a 1-year deal, 1-year deals. It's just risky. I'm going to put $250 million into my quarterback, and I'm going to have journeyman right tackles.
Yep.
That's how could that go wrong?
Not great. But thank you so much, Tom, for the supers. We got some other people coming in. US Dave, Buenos Dias, good to see you. Bama X is in the house too. Good morning, Broncos country. We got Sting Guy saying, Scott, national media is calling the Russell Wilson trade the worst in NFL history. What do you think?
It's a long history, man. I don't know. Right now, if it continues along this stretch, it's horrible, but it's early. It's early days. Russell Wilson is too good a quarterback to be playing like this for the next 5 years of his career. I'm not convinced. I've seen enough physical ability there to know he's not done. It's not over for him. But if I pile in the draft picks and the contract, if you were on this track, it's a franchise killing 4-year move where you better hit on a draft in the 3rd round on a quarterback that you can come in and get competency for zero money because you're already paying so much in your quarterback room. But there's some bad trades in there. Hell, 3 second-round picks for Sam Darnold to move up 2 spots was horrendous. There's been some in the past. Can you imagine the Herschel Walker deal now for a running back? Remember when running backs used to matter? And Herschel Walker had, he was threadbare. He had probably 900 carries in college and another 1,000 carries in the USFL. He's coming to, and then they ran him like crazy in Dallas. Herschel Walker is a freak of all freaks, but still, the tread on the tire is going down just a little bit. There's been some bad ones. There's been some ones that have been extremely one-sided. So we'll see. It's too early to tell this one, String Guy. Appreciate the comment.
Yeah, thank you so much, String Guy. We also got Sunny Days coming in. Sunny Days with the eyeballed sun here. I think it actually is a pufferfish on that first one. I can't really. It looks like a pufferfish. So God bless you, Sunny Days. I'm enjoying that. Good morning to you. It's always great to see you. A lot of people in the comments here want to say hello to Mandango Dan. Good morning, Broncos country. Let the castigation for breakfast. Wow, I read a different word there. I'm here for it. Good morning to you. Nick D in the house too. You know what the Broncos are missing? Why they've been so bad so far, Scott? Not enough Jalen Virgil. I'm just teasing Nick D. He's a Jalen Virgil truther here. Broncos rough offensive start. Most to blame, I'd probably say Russell Wilson. Run game isn't used much, but he's not even hitting simple passes that 95% of the quarterbacks do hit. Russell Wilson is the main culprit so far for the Broncos' offensive struggles so far this season. Now it's been pretty good, but and maybe we're putting a little bit too much weight on how bad this Colts game was. Before that, he wasn't this level of horrible, but this Colts game was bad. How much of I guess the question is for me, they're moving the ball before this, before the Indy game. The red zone struggles, though. Is that Russell Wilson? Is that an offensive line? Is that Hackett? I mean, it's everybody. I know that, but where do you play the most blame?
I still go offensive line. Mm-hmm. When you're into the red zone, that's when a weak offensive line will tell in the red zone because everything's tighter, everything's closer, everything happens faster. And if you're getting pushback and you cannot run the ball, if there's no threat of the run, and I can get pressure with 3 or 4 guys and drop 7 into coverage, it's hard to score. Yeah. It's hard. We've been watching this, Nick. We've been doing this together for 2 years now, and we went through the Falcons last year, the red zone problems, and watching their offensive line just get thrown around like rag dolls. And Matt Ryan gets hell for it. I'm like, what is Matt Ryan supposed to do when they're rushing 2 men and getting to the backfield and they're dropping 9 in coverage? Because the defensive tackles were dropping off and playing a short zone in the red zone. And I got 7 DBs and the 2 ends. This is against the 49ers last year. And the 2 ends are having a meeting in the backfield, and you're rushing 2 and getting there with 9. And then if you can't run the ball, everything is from a standstill. You've got no threat of the run on an option. If I'm going to, hand it off a read option play, and I really don't have a threat of the run from my quarterback position, now my running back is at a standstill. He's trying to start in that time that it takes me to get the snap and hand it to a guy whose feet aren't moving. The offensive line's been pushed back 3 yards. So for me, the offensive line is still the biggest culprit in the failures of this team of offense so far.
Yeah, I'd probably put more on the quarterback so far. The offensive line is definitely exacerbating those issues, but we said it coming into the season. Russell Wilson probably does need a run game because the quick game for him is not never been a strength of his. It's more of the big game or the down the field pass game, and that's even been a problem so far this season. Missing guys deep now. Granted, again, the arm injury could be leading to more issues there, but right now the offensive line is definitely a big one. I mean, just at some point we're going to need to comb through the data here, but these are quarterback numbers to me, Scott. Like third down last week against the Colts, 2 for 15. Now I know your average yards to go is probably not good, but third down in red zone, those are quarterback numbers. We already know about the Broncos' red zone numbers haven't been good. We'll have to put those together and kind of really start to peel back that onion. But
what's the average across the NFL like on 3rd and 8 and longer? It's like 10%. So 2 for 15 is right in line with that. Yep. Part of that's not winning first down, not winning second down, what we talked about last year.
Yep. Ryan coming in saying, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I personally believe something is going on mentally for Russell Wilson. Hope he figures it out. Also, we need better offensive line. My goodness. Yeah, it's been a huge issue there. We had back-to-back supers coming in from Tom. Yep. Highly recommend the Kurt Warner video on Russ. Haven't checked that one out yet. Been busy, but it's definitely on the docket. Miguel coming in saying, good morning, fellas. Rough game to be at in terms of football, but my daughter and I had a blast. Well, hell yeah. That's what it's, I mean, that's what it's really about. So glad to hear that you were there, able to enjoy it in Broncos country. I wasn't there, but you can put the blame on me. You can say that I was there in spirit and I'm 0-10 now or whatever it is in games. We appreciate it. We had another super coming in from Tom as well. Somewhere on here mentioning, there it is, Scott roughing the passer on Brady, blown call. Check out our Forging the Falcons channel. We talked about that for a bit today.
Yeah, it was a disgraceful call. Like I said, the NFL world is pissed off at that call because they're afraid it could happen to them. That was just it was just tragic. You know, a team fights back, down 21-0, make 2 stops. There was a holding call on AJ Terrell on 3rd and 5 on the previous set of downs that extended it. It was disgraceful, just disgraceful, because whether you're a Buccaneers fan or a Falcons fan, we're all football fans, and to see a game, I won't say decided, but ended like that was disgraceful. It's absolutely disgraceful. So that's what I think about that. And let's find Chris. Chris came in orange. Coach Chris, there we go. Nick's got him.
Yeah, I love talking about the Broncos, but I wish the content of the conversation was different. Sorry, Coach Chris. Russ is the least of our worries on this team. So many holes. It's going to be a long season. Still holding out hope. I'm going to have to disagree with you a little bit, Chris. I'm not giving up hope on Russell Wilson, but his level of play in comparison to what you gave up for him, the contract you gave him, is not good enough. Now, I've said from the beginning, let's give it 8 weeks to see the direction of this team. But the Broncos' offensive output has been dreadful so far this season. A lot to blame here, but I think Russell Wilson is probably deserves the most blame right now. Now, it's not, like I've said, it's not unsalvageable, if that's a word. But there's things that he's going to have to improve on. He's missing throws. He's missing timing routes. KJ Hamler, there's a few plays. There was the one play deep where he was running a post from the slot with, I think, trips to the left. And the safety came down and bought a different route. And KJ Hamler, I mean, if you toss that one up there, he runs under it, and he's still running today, right now. And then obviously the 4th down overtime where he was wide open on the right doesn't even get a look. So luckily the Broncos have 11 days from that Thursday game to Monday night. Hopefully they can get a little bit healthy. Hopefully they can get some things working, because as much as we love Cortland Sutton and what he's doing right now, you got to let these other weapons as well, who are getting open, a chance to shine, because then, that's when the offense can really start going and you have a synergistic effect on the rest of the unit.
Yeah, I'm not quite on board with you on this, Chris, but I get what you're coming from, where, it says Russ is the least of our worries on this team. It's not the number one worry for me. The offensive line, I just went through all that, and your head coach / offensive coordinator, to me, are bigger problems, bigger question marks right now than your quarterback. Mm-hmm. If your offensive line is playing better, then again, it's hard for me to judge how bad is Nathaniel Hackett. Well, now this contradicts myself, because you just talked about Hamler. If he's scheming guys open and Russ is missing them, like Hamler on that last play, what's the problem there with the red zone offensive play calling? Hamler's wide open on a pretty easy pitch and catch, but the possibility of losing this team and losing the respect in the locker room for the coach is real. Yeah. It's real. You're a first-time guy and you're getting clowned. These are professionals, and they will tune out. They've got contracts, and they will play out the duration and wait until next year when they've got somebody new coming in. So, he's very much on a one-and-done path right now.
And the other thing is that it's new ownership, and that totally changes the formula here. I mean, George Payton has somebody else to answer to now, and Hackett answers to him. So we'll see. And the big question is, and Orange coming in 199 saying, what happens in the offseason if we go under 500? Definitely a chance that Hackett is elsewhere, but it's not just the 500. That is just one point of many factors. Where's the locker room at? Is there positive momentum? Is he the one steering the ship? Do you need more of a leadership in the room, somebody with a little bit more competence? And one thing about the Broncos with the ownership group now is that I don't think they're going to get outbid by anybody for a head coach going forward. There is no salary cap for the head coach. So if the Broncos identify like, hey, Sean Payton's available, we want to toss him heck money. And I'm not sure how that works exactly. He might still be under contract with the Saints.
He is. He's under contract for 2 more seasons. So you'd have to come to an agreement with the New Orleans Saints. But here's $10 million in compensation.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be draft money. You don't have to trade him for a draft, but you would have to compensate the New Orleans Saints in some way for Sean Payton and money talks. It would end up going back to like international soccer thing where you deal in cash. You don't
Exchange.
deal in players and draft. You send money.
Yep.
You'd send them. So you'd send them an 8-figure check if you wanted Sean Payton.
Definitely possible, but we'll see. There's a lot of factors right now. I mean, you talk about the fourth down, like he got the okay to go make the decision. It's, who's in charge here? I could just keep coming back to that. Gary Leeds Palmer, good morning, Nick and Scott. I can't say anything good, so I'm just hoping for better days. Go Broncos. Love Broncos country. Good to see you, Gary. Always great to hear from Gary. Also one of our favorites coming in here, Mark Schrader, saying good morning, Nick and Scott. Scott and Nick. And Mark, hope you're doing well. I know that it's been a rough road for recovery here, but hopefully every day is a little bit better for you. We also got Bama X saying Chubb is the one to watch pretty closely as the trade deadline nears, especially if Browning continues to shine and wins start to not stack. I agree with you to an extent. Bama X, the issue with Chubb being traded is that you need to be able to get more than the compensatory pick for him. And given the fact that he is a 1-year contract, he'd have to be like traded, and then the team would need like to guarantee that they're going to get him back, I think. I say that, but then you have Von Miller getting a second and third last year. It's just a little different because Von Miller is a different caliber player than Chubb. Chubb is younger, so I think it's more the long-term perspective with Chubb versus going all in with Von Miller. But Chubb's definitely one to watch as far as getting a big return. I wouldn't be surprised at all if they were at least listening. If let's say the Broncos are, what are we, still 3 weeks from the trade deadline?
Yeah, we're 5 games in. We're knocking on the door of a third of the way through the season already.
I think November 1st is the trade deadline, so you still have 3 more games after this. 1, 2, 3, yes. So let's say the Broncos are, what are they right now? 2 and 3. Let's say they are 3 and 5. Probably listening there to some people, picking up the phone. Big 3 that you probably get the most return for. Chubb would be number 1, followed by Draymond Jones, followed by Jerry Jeudy. And sorry, guys, you're looking at rookie contract folks here. Like, oh, trade player X or trade. God, who's somebody that's not on a rookie contract?
It's usually this guy sucks. He's overpaid and he's always hurt. Trade him. I always get a kick out of that. I'm like, well, you didn't do much of a sales job on that one. You've got to trade stuff you don't want to give up. Yeah. If you want to get a return, you've got to trade things you don't want to get. You don't want to lose.
Yep. Some other ones that could be options here. Again, think players on rookie contracts. Those are typically the guys who are moved at that time of year. Maybe you can get a 7th round pick or a 6th round pick for Dalton Reisner. Maybe you can exchange 7ths moving on from Lloyd Cushenberry. Those are the ones that stand out to me. Guys who are close to the end of their rookie contract, but still on their rookie contracts. But right now, Chubb is playing so good. And Eric and I have disagreed about this one in the chat a little bit. But I think Chubb is playing so well that even though you have Browning emerging as a star, you're paying Randy Gregory. If you tag Chubb this offseason, that puts you up to a 1-for-1 kind of deal where you can either continue to exercise Randy Gregory's contract or you can move on from Gregory after, because this deal is essentially a 2-year deal, and then pay Chubb. So I think that, the edge rushers right now is probably the identity of the defense. The best part you have going. I'm not looking to move on from Chubb to take away from that strength when you have the ability to retain him, not worry about the comp pick formula, et cetera, unless somebody's at the deadline, offering you a 1st round pick, then maybe we can have a conversation, but I don't know if that's happening.
Tom coming against says Hall of Fame quarterbacks make the line better and the wide receivers. Yeah, and new offensive coordinator, new everything. There's a lot of new in there. And again, I'll try not to keep beating this horse, but we've had our questions about the offensive line for a year.
Yeah.
A year. And what changed was the scheme and the coaching, but not the players. And the players haven't improved. The players have not improved. Yeah. And your wide receivers have taken a hit. Tim Patrick being out, Noah Fant, what did he catch? 70 passes last year. That's a loss that you haven't been able to replace. And we'll get to Jeff. Jeff comes in here. He's got a comment about that as well. Catch up with Jeff in just a moment. Lawrence Rivera coming. He says, "What's up? Good morning. I think Russ is going to have his best game this week. Those shots are not nothing nice the NFL has. So, we'll see. We will see. Again, going back to Coach Chris's super, I don't think Russell Wilson was the biggest problem for this team right now. Can he play better? Sure, he can play better. The offensive line has to play better. And that becomes a big question, Nick, is how how is this offensive line going to get better now with you're starting left tackle? We said this at the beginning of the year. You and I had this discussion. Other than your quarterback, who is your most indispensable player on this team? I said left tackle. I said Garrett Bowles because he is the most irreplaceable guy. Even when he's given up sacks, I don't feel like they've been on Bowles. I feel like they've been on coverage sacks where it's been 5-step drop, 1, 2, ball needs to come out. Instead, it's been 5-step drop, 1, 2, hold, shuffle, sack. Those aren't on Bowles. Bowles hasn't been playing that badly. But he hasn't been playing at such a level that he's irreplaceable either.
Yeah.
So, how when the line's been that bad, how much are you really going to miss him now? I don't know. It's certainly not going to help.
I definitely thought he's regressed some this season so far, reverting to a little bit of not moving his feet, getting a little bit more grabby. So still, he was your only offensive lineman that had been playing this season that has been playing near an average level. So it's tough. Luckily, Calvin Anderson looks a lot more competent at left tackle, but the unit gets worse. No doubt. And Jeff coming in saying, is Dulcich playing this year? I think he could help. I mean, gosh, typically I keep guarding against, rookie tight ends, especially day 2 ones, relying on them. Typically they take a few years to get going, especially one that's been injured and missed most of the offseason to this point. But given you've gotten Diddley from the tight end position so far, you probably can get something from this season, even if it is, not a huge return on his play this season. But he should be back here pretty soon. I believe they're going to take him. I think they're going to take him off the short-term IR this week, and we might see him get rotated in sparingly this week against the Chargers.
So once they return to practice, they have 21 days to make a full-time decision. This is what I have now learned about some of the procedural where he can come back to practice and they have 21 days to either activate him or shelve him for the season. So he wouldn't have to be, if we get the report that Dulcich has returned to practice, he doesn't have to be removed from IR just yet. He has 21 days before you either have to 53 him or IR him and he's out for the year. And Jeff, appreciate you coming in with the stars. I agree. We're not asking for the finished product out of Dulcich at this point. We're asking for another help as a pass catcher. Can he do that? Yeah. Nick, is he going to be a great inline blocking tight end? One, that's not what he was drafted for. But 2, can I get him in there and teach him the route tree and have him become, the bar's been set so low that anything you get out of him will be more than what you're getting. And yes, he is a competent pass catching threat who can help. A big target. He can help this team without a doubt in my mind.
I mean, maybe that's a touchdown in the play that was the Andrew Beck one that bounced off his foot backed away. Maybe Dulcich gets a little bit more separation there than Beck, who is probably the second best athlete at the tight end position for the Broncos right now, which is not great. So we'll see. It's definitely another option there, but is Russell Wilson going to look for them? I mean, you have guys open right now in this last game in Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler that were just straight up being missed. So I don't know. I digress, but let's talk a little bit more offensive line here. Scott, did you ever watch the show It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia?
I did
Maybe
not.
A little too deprived for you. Okay. Well, there's a scene where 2 of the characters, they think somebody's going to try to kill them. So they fake their own death and they run a car full speed into a wall. And one of them, it's a hilarious scene. I mean, it's ridiculous. But that's essentially what it looks like this Broncos game so far this season, trying to run the football. And I see comments coming in here from somebody saying the Broncos need to run shotgun and the Broncos need to not run it on first down. The shotgun quick pass game for Russell Wilson has been dreadful so far this season. I think when the offenses look the best, you've had the most room for him to see over the offensive line in deep play action sets when he's been under center, getting that depth behind the offensive line versus the shotgun quick pass game. But if the run game is not working and it is as poor as it has been so far this season for the Broncos, teams are not going to respect that play action, especially the rushers. And they're going to say, bet we'll meet you at the quarterback versus, having to play disciplined in our rush lanes against the running backs and the run game in general. So I think Russell Wilson is number 1 for me so far, but after that, it's the offensive line, and continue to harp on it, broken record, but the interior offensive line has been freaking horrible so far this season in the run game. Dalton Reisner, I know they, I guess I'll just call you out on this one, Scott. But some of our shows last year, you'd be like, why is Dalton Reisner getting a free pass? I'm watching this game. he's not good. He's really struggling out there. I don't really understand what this Broncos country is, why is he not getting any blame or critiqued at all? It's time we critique Dalton Reisner. I know he had a good rookie season. I know he's the hometown kid, but he's been playing not very good, especially in the run game. Pass game, he's okay. Run game, horrible. Lloyd Cushenberry is worse than last season. And God bless him. I just give him a break. Graham Glasgow can't move at this point. After the injury, he just can't move, which is what you need at this offense. The interior offensive line has been horrible. Because of that, you're not getting a lot of respect on the play action. Because of that, you're constantly third and long. Because of that, the deep shots and the moving the chains is not really working for Russell Wilson because the play act, a lot of it comes back to the offensive line, but specifically the run blocking of the unit, which you need to balance what a Russell Wilson offense looks like. I think he does need the run game married to him to be the most effective.
Yeah, and looking at next year, we talked about, what are some of the things to look forward to? And no, there's no money. There is money. And what's interesting to me is if you do go to Spot Rack and sort by guard, Dalton Reisner is on about $4 million all in based on his not as average salary, but of available free agents, there's only 4 guys with an average salary over $4 million right now. You can get good offensive line play for $4 million on the interior line. You can go get some good players. There will be money to do that. My question on this, Nick, is, do we just go in, the old definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting a different result. Are you going in Calvin Anderson, Dalton Reisner, Lloyd Cushenberry, Graham Glasgow, Cam Fleming? Is that your starting 5 in your next game? Or does this get shaken up at all? I mean, another 10 days, Billy Turner was active. Do we see the mysterious Billy Turner somewhere? Tom Compton, Netane Moody, anything? Where are some of the guys being brought in for the practice squad to come in and bring in some extra bodies? Who's being signed there? You've got to shake this up somewhere, somehow, just to hold people accountable, for God's sakes.
Yeah, and sorry, I guess my internet's kind of pulling like the offensive line right now and getting me hit and letting me down a tad. But no, yeah, you do have to hold some people accountable. I think they just keep waiting, stringing along Quinn Miners to come back before they make the move. And I'm guessing if we don't see Quinn Miners this week, I have some question marks going forward. But now you have, what is it, the 11 days between the Thursday night to the Monday night game. It's time for the offensive line shakeup to happen. If there's a time to implement it, you have this built-in mini bye week, which is a day longer than you'd expect. Most of the time Thursday, it's 10 days. You have a full extra day to get it going. So Billy Turner, what's going on there? Quinn Miners, what's going on there? If there's going to be a shakeup happening, this is when you can implement it right now. So hopefully we see that and it improves. I mean, we're talking about how bad the run blocking is right now for the Broncos offensive line. I know that he is definitely a step back in the pass protection area, but you need to find some sort of identity on the offense. And maybe that is more of the power run game with the play action. Maybe you live with the pass blocking drop back and put Netane Moody in there somewhere because he can move guys at the point of attack. I don't know. But the offensive line right now, it does need a shakeup, and what they have to
lose. It's like, oh, well,
yeah.
He's not as good at pass protection. Nobody's good at pass protection right now. They're getting driven back into the lap of your quarterback. Again, even just for accountability, the old phrase, sometimes you got to shoot a hostage. Somebody needs to be held accountable on that offensive line of, hey, listen, Dalton, I know you've been doing your best out there, but we're going to shake things up this week. Keep your head up. Could be in next week. Whatever, something, anything.
Yeah.
God, I sound like an idiot. I know, but there's options. There's options on the team. You've got to you can't just throw the same 4 guys out there and then Calvin Anderson at left tackle and expect it to get better. You just can't. An Epic Gamer comes in. Appreciate you coming in, Green, with the super on YouTube. Says, don't the Broncos have the most drop passes in the league? Can't entirely blame Russell. I don't know if they do or not. I know they got a bunch. And it's coming from all over the place. And no, I've said before today, I've said on this podcast, Russell Wilson isn't the number one problem I've got with this offense. I think that as the other things we've talked about from offensive line to Nathaniel Hackett, as they improve, you'll see a much better Russell Wilson. But again, your receivers do have to start catching the balls that are hitting them in their hands, because it's not just Jerry Jeudy dropping passes.
Yeah.
It's everybody. Everybody's dropped passes.
The tight ends also. I mean, we got to lead the league in tight end drop passes. But Sutton's dropped a couple. Judy's dropped some. Hamler hasn't had a chance to drop any because he's had like one target on the season.
I was going to say, except KJ Hamler, he might be the one that hasn't dropped a pass.
Yeah. But yeah, thank you so much, Epic Gamer, for coming in and the support. We appreciate you. Also, Money Moore coming in here, the ShamWow. Money Moore coming in. I'd blame the injury bug, but we all saw week one. Injury bug doesn't help, and it's also making it really hard for the Broncos to, build on anything when you just keep having to replace players and figure things out. Luckily, again, 11 days here, but it sucks. I mean, you mentioned Garrett Bowles being one of the guys that you can't lose this year. They're going to miss him, even though his play was not great. Curious to see what happens here. I'm wondering if Garrett Bowles this offseason gets the Graham Glasgow treatment, where the cap hit is dropped, the guarantees are raised to keep him for another season type of contract growth here, because he has not played to his contract, had not played to his contract this season. Now he's injured. Hopefully it's not one of those things where we get so far from what he was this season that we're like, oh yeah, no, he's great now. We got to bring him back. It can't be worse. You don't want to overpay still if you have the option to move on.
No, he's on a contract next year that makes him expendable, where he's got an 18 million cap hit, which is decent money. He's got the number one cap hit for offensive linemen this year. It won't be that next year. It'll come down. His cap hit goes from 21 to 18, but his dead cap is at 8. So you got $10 million savings if you decide to move on which is, you've got flexibility there. I don't think you would. 2 years left on a deal. Let's see how he returns back. And if you want to extend him and lower your cap hit, you still have that option. But the fact you will have options with Garrett Bowles next year, which is a good way to be. And Money Moore, you blame the injury bug, but we all saw week one. I agree. And that's what makes it hard to bounce back. That's the scary part of this. It's like we saw week one, we saw some improvements. We've seen improvement with the clock management. Moving the ball between the 20s pretty well for the most part. But then the injuries just they just kind of suck the hope right out of you. You start looking at some of the players like, okay, Quinn Miners has been gone most of the season. That hurt. Garrett Bowles now. That hurts. Tim Patrick. And Ronald Darby. That's been the big one for Nick, was your depth at corner. Depth at corner scares me. And Ronald Darby's out for the year now. Speaking of one we may never see in a Denver Broncos uniform again, because his contract makes him expendable next season, and he's out for the season.
Yep. 100%. See Patrick Havner coming in here, silent one. We appreciate you, CPH, coming in and supporting us. Yeah, the offensive line's a big issue. And the other thing is, and we talked about it, and it's one that we harped on as well, especially after Tim Patrick went down, is that the receiving options are poor. Now the Broncos, is this fair to say, Scott? Do the Broncos have the worst tight end room in football?
It can't be
far from
it's not. I don't know everybody else's enough, but it's got to be close.
You just have no options there. And again, I know that a lot of people, are talking about what's best with Russell Wilson so far this season. Maybe I'm going to need to bother PFF some to get the aggregate data on what the EPA and the efficiency metrics are based on personnel, shotgun versus non-shotgun. But from what I've seen so far this season, I think some of the best looks from Russell Wilson have been the deep play action dropbacks from under center, where then he has even more depth than shotgun. He's further behind the offensive line, has a chance to step up and do something. And teams aren't respecting that right now because the run game is, and the offensive line has been so inefficient. But they got to figure something out. Maurice coming in here saying, who's the most to blame for not executing proper due diligence on Russell Wilson, dropping $250 million on such damaged goods? I don't know. Did the Broncos get sold a lemon? I mean, I guess I was listening to Athletic. Shannon Sharp said something similarly here. Did George Payton, not do the homework, just saw the name become available and make the move? Was this a panic reaction after not being able to get Aaron Rodgers in here? I don't know. I mean, 10 years from now, we might have a ESPN 30 for 30 on this and everything that transpired in this era and the coming of age of the Walmart Broncos.
It's George Payton on this one. There's your answer. Now, I think we can all applaud the move, the trade. It was, you needed a quarterback. You spent 2 first rounders on it again, but then I've already said it. I'll say it one more time, then I'll be done with it. You had 2 years of control. Let's live together a little bit before we get married. And to then turn around and drop $250 million with all this newness, I think was a mistake. I said I wanted patience. I preach patience on both sides. Russell Wilson, before you commit the rest of your career to a new team and a franchise, be sure about it. $250 million helps me feel a little bit more sure, about 170 guaranteed. I feel pretty good about things now.
Yeah.
But again, you're hitching your wagon to a relative, not a relative unknown, but a lot of unknown when it comes to all of the newness here. Russell Wilson will last longer than Nathaniel Hackett, though. It's easier to switch coaches than it is quarterbacks with a big old guaranteed contracts.
Yeah. It's panic time so far this season, unfortunately. And just to get in more of the Russell Wilson here, I have the EPA per play metrics here for the Broncos so far this season. The Broncos quarterback, that is coming out from, let's back up a little bit. You can let me know if you see that on your screen there. But yeah, here's Broncos so far this season. Obviously, we can mess with this a little bit, but the completion percentage over expected on the x-axis and the y-axis, EPA per play. So far this season, Russell Wilson in the dropbacks, full win probability, one of the worst quarterbacks in football. And unfortunately, this also comes to me in this one where seeing this, it was before the season even started. It was over on the Athletic podcast, Robert Mays and Nate Tice saying Russell Wilson losing athleticism, losing a little bit of arm talent. He's just Baker Mayfield. And that's unfortunate to hear that. But so far this season, that graphic indicates that's true. Now, again, Russell Wilson playing with an injury. The interceptions is a big reason that the EPA dropped a ton on that one last week. Still plenty of time to figure it out this season and get it going. Jerry Jeudy, KJ Hamler, they got to get those guys involved. But not good through 5 games. I think we can say that. Not ready to write the end of the book on this. Not ready even for the midterm grades. But need to pull out some good tests going forward on some good pop quizzes to get better through the rest of the season. Wyatt Horning coming in. Oh man, Wyatt, you're going to trigger me on this one. This is a Bronco Hawkeye comment here. I don't know if I can handle it. I need to pull the mask off Hackett and Russ. Probably discover it's Brian Ferentz and Spencer Petras. I wasn't high on the season this year due to a lot of new parts. 500 at best, and it's starting to look likely with injuries and poor play. I thought this team, what did I have them at? 9.5 wins, 10 or 9 overall. Then the injury started to happen. I always thought it was going to take a little bit of time to get this going, but I didn't expect the Broncos offense to look this inept so far this season. I mean,
you could not have predicted. Nobody could have predicted this level of badness. Whether you thought Russell Wilson was not the Russell Wilson of old or not, no one predicts this level of offensive ineptitude. No one.
Yeah, it's been rough. And especially when you bring in a new quarterback, you have these weapons that you do enjoy on paper and an offensive-minded head coach. It's been an issue. So yeah, Wyatt, no more Hawkeye talking here. I'm gonna start crying. I can't handle it after this weekend, unfortunately. But yeah, no, the Broncos offense has been struggling so far. Scott, you're putting it mostly on the offensive line. We've kind of talked about it.
From the things that we can see.
Yes.
From the things that we can see, I think the offensive line is your biggest flat tire right now. Yep. The stuff we can't see is, the play is it Nathaniel Hackett and is the offensive coordination of this team. That one you don't know for sure. But for me, I can't blame it all. I go offensive line before I go Russell Wilson for sure.
I think Russell Wilson's probably number 1 for me, given how much he can amplify the improvements here. I mean, it comes down to the quarterback for me in the end. The offensive line is worse than Russell Wilson, but Russell Wilson's impact and play versus expectation is probably number 1 for me. And we keep coming back here to Nathaniel Hackett. Unfortunately for Hackett, what's the easiest one to change here? Typically, it's the quarterback, the easiest to change, but you're married to Wilson for the next 4 years. Offensive line is scheme and a number of players and health as well. Hackett might be the one who is the most likely to be on the hot seat here and moved at the end of the season if the offensive struggles continue to this level.
Yeah, like I said earlier, it's easy. There should be an overhaul of the offensive line. You're going to have money to do that. If Bowles comes back, I can go Bowles. But then, we went through about 50 or 60 million dollars in available free agent money. Now you've got to re-sign some of your own guys, and you got to fill out some players that are coming off of free agents that leave. But you need at least 2 new interior offensive linemen, at least 2.
Yeah.
A center and a guard to come in here and compete. And again, I would try and find a $10 million right tackle.
Yep. Right tackle and interior offensive line. Well, Scott, we're pushing on 8:30 here Mountain Time, so it's time for us to start wrapping it up here. Any final thoughts before we close the book on today's show and start our Mondays?
No, I'm just kind of hoping that this is the back against the wall type of thing. What's this team made of? Will they rally around their new offensive, their new head coach, or they've got every excuse in the world to pack it in at this point? 2-3, the whole freaking team's hurt. Guys are dropping like flies. I'm going to get mine, and I'm going to wait for next year. So we'll find out a lot about the heart of this team and whether or not they're willing to. Because this is about the time I said last year that Vic Fangio was a dead man walking, because that team quit last year. They quit. There's a lot of the same guys in the locker room. A lot of them. We'll see if they're ready to fight for Nathaniel Hackett or not.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, they got until next Monday, a week from today, 7 days to get it right and get on the right track. Final question for you, Scott, and Wyatt coming in. Any thought on Jules' injury? I'd be shocked if we see Jewel this week on week to week. When it's week to week, you're not going to play that next game. So it's a knee injury, I think, not a groin. So we'll see. Jules' injuries, man, it's just good when he's out there, but it's been too much. But alas, any final thoughts before we get on out of here, though, Scott? And is this game against the Chargers next week a must-win?
If you want to, again, it is a must. It is a must-win. It is. You go. What would be drop into 2-4?
Yeah.
And this team would fold up. Just final thoughts on this was Mike came in on Facebook and he's like, things could turn around. Doesn't mean they can't gel and win 10 games. And that's what we're going to find out, Mike. It's the injuries that make it so scary. It's not just like, okay, they take some time for this new team to come together. Now you're throwing in new players. That's the hard part, Mike, is it just all of the newness and now your top players are dropping like flies. You're losing, like I said, it was bad on Thursday and then the news got worse over the weekend. Not to be just all doom and gloom, but we'll find out a lot about this team, whether they're ready to fight or not. If they have it in them to gel and fight despite the setbacks, because they've got a whole boatload of excuses at the ready if they want to pack it in.
Big game, man. Biggest game of the season so far, and one where if they want to have playoff aspirations at all, they have to win it. And Little Rain Man coming in saying, stop thinking playoffs. Got to think playoffs, man. This is what you traded for this season. And the AFC West isn't this gauntlet that we thought it would be. The Chiefs are as good as we had feared, but the Raiders, I know we lost them, but Broncos could have had that game. Chargers very injured. I mean, this is a chance here. And if you win this one, you are back to 3-3. Keep 500 and maybe get hot there at the end, especially the 7 playoff spots. But right now, things are a little bit rough in Broncos country, and it starts with the offense. So hopefully we'll get it figured out. Thank you guys for joining us today. Make sure you're following Scott and I on Twitter. Scott is at Scout Kennedy. I am at Nick Kendell MHH. Also follow us at BFB_pod on Twitter and at Mile High Huddle. If you haven't done so yet, join our Facebook community at facebook.com/Mile High Huddle and facebook.com/Mile High Huddle pod. And as the ticker says underneath, if you're joining us on YouTube today or you have a YouTube account, make sure that you subscribe, like, and share over on there. That's the number one place you can follow us for all these Broncos live streams, both morning shows and evening shows. We're here for you at Mile High Huddle, consistent and we're with you with the ups and downs so far this season. We won't see you again tonight, but the Huddle Up guys, Chad and Zach will be on tonight, and Scott and I will be with you again tomorrow morning. But until then, you guys have a great one. Make sure you continue to choose passion and kindness. Compassion and kindness. Come kindness. Everyone choose some kindness. Appreciate you guys. Go Broncos.